Talk and Rock Radio, where friends meet at the intersection of life, inspiration, and music. Here's your host, Rick Kern.
Welcome, everyone, to Talk and Rock Radio. You know, when I think back to the early 60s, the rock bands in El Paso, well, we had a bunch of them. In some of the standout groups, there was a bunch from Austin High School, but one that really stood out to me was a group called the Wild Ones. Today, I have two original members of that group with me, guitarist, vocalist Jay Nye from El Paso, Texas, and all the way from San Francisco, drummer Roy Moore. Welcome, guys.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Hi, Rick. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you guys. I haven't seen you all in person a long time. I've been texting and emailing and stuff like that through the years, but I think the last time all of us were together was probably at a Border Legends show or something.
Absolutely. Those were great shows, Rick.
Yeah. What I want to do first with this is have you guys talk a little bit about how you all first met. You know, you've known each other for 62 years plus. Go ahead, Jay, and kick this thing off and talk a little bit about how you all came about meeting each other and how you got interested in music.
Well, both of us went to Crockett grade school, and that's where we met, I guess, in the 6th grade. And then we just became really good friends there. I was good friends with his mom and dad. You know, I know Roy was raising hamsters at the time. I thought that was pretty cool. And then, of course, from there, we went over to 7th and 8th grade at Austin Junior High. And it was, as you know, or maybe not know, that was in that building, in the same building, and it just a lower portion part of the high school itself. And, you know, that's kind of where we met. And then it kind of, I don't know, things blossomed from there, if you want to say. Roy moved his family moved from one house to another on Altura when I was also on Altura, and had a really nice little condo or room in the back there, and that's where we would congregate. And that's where we kind of started the music thing. Just we were both interested in music. I had been given a guitar when I was very young and didn't know how to play it yet. So that's kind of in a nutshell. Roy, you want to add to that?
Sure. There was a number of feeder schools to Austin High School. One of them was Crockett that Jay and I came from, but also Bassett Intermediate and Colwell. Which was another. Jay lived up on the western end of El Paso, Altura Street,
Right, yeah.
towards Piedras Pascopia, and I lived at the other end down towards Pershing. So we were separated by a good mile and a half or more. But yeah, it was interesting. My parents had a place that we lived in at the time, and it had a little outbuilding. We called it a den. Basically, it was a mother-in-law's quarters like they would have today. And Jay and I started hanging out in there with some other people. Almost everybody we knew through Austin was into music. And that really was a surprising thing in retrospect, because I look back and I can just name, well, Ron Crosby's a good example. And just Lee White and Eddie Oriana and, gosh, Mike Ballard and, you know, Paul Dillon. I can go on and on and on about the number of people, Ray Bisio, Bobby Morrow, people who, you know, were in our class or near our class that were involved in music. So it was really a huge interest. I mean, in hindsight, why? Well, Beatles, Stones, Chuck Berry. I mean, popular music was it. I mean, we kids were really into radio at the time. I still am. And you know, they were playing just fabulous music, and I don't know, being horny young teens we were, you know, hey, how to get some girls? Let's make a band. You know, that was always one way. So we started gathering instruments. We started trying to play and learn and copy music. It was rather strange. I mean, in the fact, when I look back in perspective, all the guys, almost all the guys and some of the girls I know in El Paso had something to do with music. They tried to, like as yourself, Rick. I mean, across several years of adjacent generations. I mean, we learned from people who were doing it before us, and people that came after us did more, and it was a really rewarding experience that lives with me to this day.
Right. As a matter of fact, Roy mentioned gathering instruments and what have you. My sister, who was in living in El Paso at the time, helped me get my first Silvertone amp, my first Fender Mustang,
Yeah.
and then later on, she helped me buy a Showman and a Gibson 335.
In fact, I'm going to show a picture right now. In fact, there was a guy that recently on Facebook, I guess, had pointed that out, that he had seen that, and he thought, man, that is so classic, because it's my favorite picture of you guys. You know, it's the one with Frank Sotelo, your first band, Paul West on bass, Frank Sotelo on lead, and Roy and you, Jay. So yeah, it's a great photo.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, it's crazy the way we learned. I mean, you know, none of us had a music background at that time, and we just we were every day after school and all day long during the summertime. We're there in Roy's den, trying to figure out what chords. I mean, we listened to these records over and over and over again, trying to figure out what the heck was going on, and that's how we learned. You know, I didn't on the board on my fretboard. I didn't know A from B. You know, but between Frankie had a really good ear, and so did Paul. And my ear not too bad, and Roy too. But that's how we learned. And I think a point that I made with Roy not too long ago is we didn't have tuners in those days. I have no idea if we were really on tune. I guess we tuned to the record and went from there.
Well, you know, and I was going to ask you, I mentioned who was in the first, Wild Ones group, but the second one, the latter group, that one had Kenny Smith in there and Bobby Sotelo, just the premier bassist of El Paso. I tell you, I don't know anybody bass player wise that was better than Bobby Sotelo. I mean, even Doug Neal to this day gives credit to Bobby Sotelo as being his mentor. Just an incredible bassist.
And the first Wild Ones was kind of an accident, to be honest. I mean, we had been dabbling in music in this little outdoor arena we call a den at my parents' house for quite a while, and people like Terry Manning and David Woods and our immediate friends, and we're always messing around. And one day, coming down the alley, comes this guy with a trumpet out of nowhere, and it's Paul West. Hey, can I play? I don't know. Can you play the thing? Well, he probably knew more about music than we did at the time, because he'd been in the school band playing trumpet. But Paul wandered along, and Jay had encountered Frank, I don't know, by accident, who lived a couple of doors up from him.
Right.
And lo and behold, that was the first Wild Ones, which were really amazingly good, but we were only learning. We didn't know a lot about music. Now, when the second Wild Ones came along with Kenny and Bobby, Lord, did I learn about music. And I learned it from those two. Right. Particularly, Bobby and Kenny both were into classic blues, and we learned about progressions, and we learned about rhythms. I mean, they'd have to show me what to do sometimes. I mean, I didn't know. Picked it up, and I obviously could do it, but it was a really rewarding time as far as learning music education. I mean, unbelievable.
I wanted to ask you, Roy, in that second group, the latter group of the Wild Ones, when you guys were recording, was it at that point when Kenny was already with your band that you started recording with Sumi and Tasmet? Or
yes, it was. Kenny and his dad lived in a little house over on, I want to say it on Stanton, near UTEP. And in the basement, Kenny had started to set up a studio. I mean, done things like hang rugs on the wall to deaden the sound and experimenting with microphones and mixers. And he had a couple of reel to reels. I think he was doing A-B ping pongs and from a reel to reel, one to the other. I think our first record, some of it was mixed with a basement amp top. I mean, we didn't really truly own big mixers at the time. And I think he had a little Altic mixer, and then we also had to use the bass top to mix in bass and everything for the final. But it was, I mean, really crazy doing hand claps, singing background. I'm not a singer, but we had a great time doing it. And you know, at the time there were a bunch of small record companies based out of the area. Yucco, one comes to mind in Alamogordo, and then Bobby Fuller's Exeter and
Eastwood, yeah.
Records. Steve Krosno's Frog Death.
In Las Cruces, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, suddenly records were being put on the air.
You had Brooks. You had Brooks up in Las Cruces also, you know, and
yep.
And of course Buddy Holly over in, you know, Clovis up there, you know, where he did all his recording, you know, at the studio up in Clovis. That was a big one, you know.
And the 45s were being pressed for these labels by Sidney J. Wakefield in Phoenix, Arizona, a pressing company. Basically, that's what they did. They made custom 45s, and that's where Jay's probably got a case or two of them left already.
I wanted to ask you guys on the on both of the records that I'm going to show here on this episode. It has Austin on the left side, and on the right side it had El Paso. Now, at one point, I don't remember them being in Austin. I know when they went to Memphis, when Bill and Kenny went to Memphis and opened up their place over there. Actually, they're working out of another studio, High Records. But,
High Records in Memphis, yeah.
Yeah, Memphis. But tell me about that Austin little bit. Is that because of Austin High School, or what was that Austin on the 45?
Jay, do you have an inkling?
I don't know why at all. I had actually never noticed that.
Yeah.
It could be, you know, Kenny did go to Austin High School. I remember that. I mean,
yeah.
El Paso High.
El Paso, yeah.
He went to El Paso High, and Bobby may have too also. I'm not sure.
I think he did.
I can't tell. But some of the later photos you probably have that show the Ladderwall ones. One of those was taken in Austin, and one was taken at El Paso High, two different locations. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
The newer part of El Paso High.
I like the one where you guys are standing two up above and two below. That's at Austin? That's at Austin, right?
Right at the side on the front of the building.
Yeah, that's a cool photo.
Our friends at Austin gave us a blast about taking pictures at El Paso High too.
Oh yeah. Is that the one where you guys are kind of sitting outside on a rail or something?
Sitting on a rail, and that's the newer part of El Paso High, not the old original.
Ah, okay. Yeah. That's a cool photo. Yeah, you guys got some real vintage ones there. I really liked them. Now the first song, I Want to Be Friendly. Is it your daughter that reached out to me yesterday, Roy, that was talking about how they love going on Echo and having Echo play I Want to Be Friendly because the grandkids are having a kick out of that, I guess.
Yes, indeed. That's my youngest daughter, Bonnie Alyssa. I got two grandkids in Las Cruces.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I got that message on my email. I think it was yesterday, and I thought that's cool. You know, Roy's already promoting our show, and it's not even produced yet.
She found it months ago. I didn't even find it. She found it months ago.
Yeah.
I was talking to her on the phone one day. She says, "Hey, listen to this," and she talks to the Echo. And next thing you know, it's playing "I Want to Be Friendly." Oh, okay.
Just sitting on a wall, I watch people go by. They ain't been friendly I don't know why. I go walking down the street. I go walking every day. They don't stop to speak. They got nothing to say. I wanna be friendly. I wanna be friendly. I wanna be friendly. I wanna be friendly. I'm just riding on a bus. I done paid my fare. They make no fuss. They just don't care. I wanna be friendly. I wanna be friendly. I wanna be friendly. I wanna be friendly. I'll pick up the telephone. I'm gonna call the world. I'm just calling to see why I'm all alone. I wanna be friendly. I wanna be friendly. I wanna be friendly. I wanna be friendly. Come on, girl, be nice to me. I don't want nothing to go wrong. I just wanna get along. That's all. Yeah, come on now.
That's
I
It's
wanna
out
cool.
there. It's out there. I mean, you start searching through names and people we knew and places. It's really sort of amazing. I mean, I think even I told Jay this the other day. I think even a fellow named David Hayes.
In the
He's-
ponds.
Yeah.
You know, that guy is in Mendocino County somewhere, and I think he's played bass for Van Morrison for 30 years.
You know, and I think I may have heard that he passed away. I'm not positive on that.
Did he may have. I don't know. I mean, it's like, wow. I read this guy's bio. It says he's from West Texas, but never talks about anything before his adulthood, right?
When he went to Eastwood High School and all of that, you know.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, I've been trying to track him down for a long time, and I think one of his old bandmates or somebody from the ponds had finally confirmed with me that I think, if I'm not mistaken, I need to check that. Don't. I'm not going to publish that out there, but because you remember, Roy, you've helped me with the memoriams on our Border Legend shows. You know, where we're talking about the ones that have gone before us, and one of the most embarrassing moments, there was a guy that came up to me during the Border Legend show, and he said, and we'd already played the memoriam, you know, the scroll and everything, and with Blackbird and all of that, and it was very touching, very well done by you, and this guy comes up to me and he says, Rick, I'm so and so, and I can't try to remember who it was. It was one of the guys that knew Dalton real well, and everything goes way back, and he's going, I'm here in the flesh. I am not dead. Oh, God. And somebody had given me bad information, you know, and I had no way to prove it otherwise, you know. So anyway, I just kind of went with it. But that was one of those embarrassing moments. Anyway, so now I always double check, you know, before I put that information out there. But I think the one on David Hayes is pretty accurate.
Yeah, but speaking about David Hayes, you know, the biggest Battle of the Bands in El Paso at that time was way out on Montana at that
Continental Ballroom.
Continental Ballroom, exactly. And we won that one year, the second Wild Ones, won that. And if I recall correctly, the Instigators were there. I think David Hayes and the Pawns, maybe the Intruders, I don't know. I can't remember. There were several. There was one band that had a female singer.
Irene Porras.
The image.
Yeah, and
Irene Porras, she was great.
Wonderful, man. She sang Aretha like Aretha, and
yeah. Anyway, we were very lucky to win that night. So,
nice. What year was that, Jay?
It had to be 65, 66. It was that year, our senior year,
Okay.
high school.
believe it was like in the winter '66.
Yeah, I think so.
Who?
I want to back up for just 1 second and mention how we found, or Frank Sotelo found us. He lived about 4 or 5 houses up from me, and Bobby lived there at the time as well. And so somehow or another, Frank and I met, just because we were in that vicinity. And in those days, we didn't have the computers and the iPhones and the iPads, and so we were outside a lot playing ball or just hanging out. And so that's how I got to know Frank. Frank was just a little kid, literally a little kid, about this tall. And he would, when we finally got him into the group, he would borrow, I forget what model it was, but it was a red double cutaway solid body Gibson that Bobby had, as well as and again, I don't remember the kind of amp. It was a Fender with the 410s.
Yeah.
410s. Anyway, that's how we got to Frank and brought him into the fold, so to speak.
One of my prized photos that Sharon and I shot when we got off the road, I think it was, well, I don't know, maybe it was before we got off the road. We might have been home one time, and I heard that Chuck Berry was playing at the Civic Center, and so we went to the show, and who was backing him up that day was Dalton Powell on drums and Bobby Sotelo on bass.
Really?
And they had a keyboard player also, but it was those three and Chuck Berry. And I wish we'd have had iPhones those days. That would have been a fun show to capture. That was, right. But I did get a photo. I had my little camera, and you can see the kind of the silhouettes. You can kind of tell it's Dalton if you know it's Dalton, But it was fun. Great bass player. I loved Bobby. He was a great musician. Back to "I Want to Be Friendly." Did Kenny Smith write that song, or? I
think it says Taylor Smith on the record.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
Both sides.
So and they did a lot of that. They wrote a lot of songs. I don't know if you've heard the episode with me and Bill Taylor, but I did one.
Yes, absolutely.
And we talked about a lot of the stuff that they did and everything. Now, and also on Something's Wrong, that one was done by them as well, right?
Right.
I'm just sitting here feeling down. I feel like my brain is coming around. Maybe it's something that you did. Maybe it's something that you said. Say no bed, so I know, baby, that I'm dead. So if this thing that's bringing me pain, your kind of woman drives me insane. Something you never say to me. Stop for me. I want something good out of life. Yeah, baby.
Are those the only two songs you guys recorded?
Released, yes, that's absolutely
Yeah,
true. Only 3 release songs.
Yeah. You alluded to a little while ago when you had won that Battle of the Bands, Jay, 65, 66. And of course, 66 is around the time that you guys decided to strike out of El Paso to L.A. And I think it's so interesting that you guys did it fresh out of high school. Roy and I have talked about the many parallels between my leaving El Paso and going to L.A. and you guys going to L.A. It's very similar what we ended up doing. When you guys left El Paso, you changed the name, right, to the Red Barons? Is that right?
Yeah, because it was a totally different band. When we backing up a little bit, I think Kenny, we had decided during the year. I mean, we played every weekend that year, and then Kenny said, let's go to California, and we said, sounds good. And so he, shortly before our graduation, Kenny took off and went out there, and I think Mike Ciccarelli was already out there. Bobby followed soon after that. So yeah, Roy and I packed up my '57 Chevy and headed out. Andre Bonaguidi jumped in with us with his sax. We thought he might join us as a sax player, but he wound up not liking it and coming home.
He told me the other day that he was a roadie with you guys for about 3 weeks and then came back to El Paso.
Yeah. But, anyway, that was a good times. Just as a little aside, I think both mothers, Roy's and mine, were totally against it.
Oh, totally.
Said, no. But both dads said, hey, they're 18, let them go. So we went and played out there and had a lot of fun.
Well, of course, you were out there when the unfortunate incident happened with Bobby and everything. And in fact, a lot of you guys were out there and experienced that. And what a sad thing to be a part of. It was bad enough to be in El Paso and hear about it, but you guys actually experienced. Some of you all were actually, were there. I know Chick was, and such a sad thing.
Robin Vinikoff had a group of people as well. Benny Hahn.
Yes. He was in that band with Irene Porras.
Yes.
And that's who. Yeah. That's who I was trying to think of earlier. Benny Hahn.
Ty Grimes.
Grimes was there.
There was a bunch. It was really weird. Here we wound up in Hollywood. We turn around. There's other guys from El Paso all around. And it was like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
We all had about the same ideas. And then a couple of years later, you did the same thing. But it was fairly. I was surprised. It was fairly easy for us to get gigs in the Los Angeles areas if we were willing to travel around a bit and go place to place. They were there. And we initially had joined the Musicians Union, which was always a requirement to work in major clubs. And then we signed with a booking agent. And that booking agent almost immediately, here, you're working. They handed us work.
Was that the TAM agency?
TAM agency, yeah.
Talk a little bit about some of the places you guys played at, Roy.
Oh, wow. Don't think we ever did the Whiskey. Don't think we ever did the Sea Witch. But we did places that were Carolina Lanes, which was in Inglewood near the airport, had a huge nightclub associated with it. And I remember playing there doing such thing as opening for the Ike and Tina Turner Review. Stunned. I don't even think I knew who Ike and Tina Turner was. I was a dumb white kid from El Paso, and I was, until Kenny or Bobby One explained to me, Roy, this is kind of cool. Yeah, it is kind of cool. We were playing for Topless 5 nights a week and then playing the weekends for dancing. And they'd let girls 18 and over in for free. So the place was full of men and women. Had a great time. And we did things like, I think Chick talked about this originally too. in something you did with him recently, where backing Bobby Sherman,
Yes.
who was a kind of a pop star at the time, pop star and young TV star, had a TV series even.
Hullabaloo and Shindig.
Hullabaloo and Shindig, yes, he was on those. And we drove up to Oxnard and back the Drifters one day, Benny King and the Drifters, and that was like, okay, I even knew who that was, you know.
Now, how about the Troubadour or Baked Potato? Did you ever play either one of those?
I don't recall ever doing either one of those, but we did play some small clubs in the North Hollywood area. God, you know, memory between Jay and I, or between the three of us, we probably barely have a recollection of events 50 years ago. But yeah, we did a lot of work. We did a lot of work. I mean, we never lacked for work. It was almost like we couldn't even find a day off. And if we did, we went to the beach and, you know, tried to do fun things there. But it was a great experience for 18-year-olds straight out of high school.
Right.
And a life experience, I must add. It was definitely a life experience.
Did you guys have an apartment while you were out there for the most part, or what did you do for living arrangements?
Initially, we were in the center of Hollywood, just a block or so off of Sunset, and sharing a room. I think it was me and Chick and Kenny and Andre initially, and Jay and I. So three of us were sleeping on the floor and eating peanut butter sandwiches, you know, because we didn't have a lot of money to go around. But we later moved into a small motel room, which is actually a big motel suite, further down towards Koreatown, I guess it was, on Sunset. So it was closer into central Los Angeles.
It was on Hollywood Boulevard, on Hollywood.
Was it on Hollywood Boulevard? I thought
it was on Hollywood Boulevard.
It may have been Hollywood Boulevard. I don't know. Get those mixed up, the parallel.
Yeah.
Hollywood and Sunset.
It's funny because when I did this recent episode with the Rhythm Pigs, the punk rock band, the Rhythm Pigs, one of the things that Ed and Mike were sharing was the eating the peanut butter sandwiches. So that seemed to be a very common diet back in those days when bands were striking out trying to make it.
Well, you know, a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter goes a long way to keep you fed.
Good protein.
Good protein, yeah. And Jeff appreciates you, and Skippy also.
Exactly.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, well, so how long did you guys stay out in L.A.?
I think roughly 3 months, 3.5 months. Is that right, Jay?
Yeah, we left right after graduation, middle part of May, and I think we came back maybe middle of September or thereabouts. It was about almost 4 months, I think.
Okay.
We were facing, you know, my problem in particular, I was facing the draft.
Yeah,
Yes.
me too.
And he did.
There was no lotto. And, you know, Jay and I knew that our number would come up if we weren't in college.
In college, yeah.
So we headed back. I headed to UTEP, so did Jay. Picked up a fabulous career just kind of by accident, going down the list. Well, I got to pick a major here. Radio TV sounds good. So I did pick that, and I must say it's been a fabulous 50 years career. I mean, I've had a great career. So
And I bet you had some courses with Virgil Hicks, right?
Oh, Virgil C. Hicks, absolutely. What a wonderful man that guy.
He was. I remember taking a couple of courses with him, RATV, my freshman year and everything, just for something to add into my electives. And he was great. Man, what a teacher. Yeah.
I remember being, I was actually manager of the, what's now KTEP out there. I was the student manager, and David Lattin, who was a basketball star, was it?
Yep.
I believe, with the
66 champion.
66 champion. He was one of the guys in my group of DJs as a student manager. It's like, Dave, you ever play anything but jazz? Nope. He played jazz a lot, which is fine with me.
Well, you and my wife Sharon was all there at the same time. She started there right out of 65 when she got out of Austin. She went straight to UTEP, And of course, I didn't get to UTEP until '68. I was a little behind you guys,
Yeah,
but
it's a couple of years.
I kind of did the opposite of what you went straight to California out of high school, and I went straight to California after college. So I needed I needed to jump right in there and get that college deferment for sure, because I was like number 72 in the draft.
Yeah, it
So
was.
Yeah, I had a low number also.
yeah,
We lost a lot of colleagues from Austin High School.
yeah, we did at Isleta as well. Well, let's talk about when you guys got back to El Paso, and I know Jay, you soon went into law school after that, and
Right.
kind of gave up the playing for a while. Of course, Roy, he kept going with the Frantic Four. You want to talk a little bit about that group, Roy?
Yeah, it was sort of an interesting time. I mean, I started in the fall of '66 at UTEP studying radio TV, and about 6 or 8 weeks in, one of the guys in my class said, "Hey, there's an opening over at the TV station where I work in radio for a cameraman. Would you like to apply?" Well, I did. Went down, had an interview. And of course, obviously, this guy had spiffed my way in, a guy named Howard Fox. And he spiffed my way into the place. And lo and behold, I had a gig running camera on the evening news, 6 and 10 at KTSM, working with Ted Bender,
John Phelan.
John Phelan, those guys you remember well. In those days, Ted Bender, what a wonderful man. Also a life experience, Ted Bender. But that's
20% Ted, we used to call him.
Wonderful guy. We used to do the late news and then go out to eat places together. And Ted told the best stories. I mean, he just had also a life experience he shared with us young people. It was great times. Anyway, so that was fine. But then I also wound up getting a job over at Kelp Radio. Steve Crosno, who's program director, hired me to work overnights over there. Basically, in a program called Radio Free El Paso. He says, you still got to play the top 40, but you can play a little extra. And Steve, I remember on a Friday night, I was playing, I put on the Doors' Light My Fire, the 11-minute version. And all of a sudden, about 5 minutes in, the phone rings. It's Steve on his way to the Gila Wilderness driving. He pulled over his car and got in the phone booth. Stop playing that shit and play some top 40.
Oh.
Anyway, pretty funny. Yeah, so I was doing both. Then I was sleeping a couple hours and then going back to school. So that got to be really old really fast. I mean, there were only so many hours in the day. I think Andre and Terry Wozniak were roommates of mine, as I remember, those days. And so I'm not sleeping, but maybe 2 or 3 hours a night and trying to work and play and chase the ladies and do the things that I did as a college guy. And suddenly I had also had this gig with the Frantic Four, Pat and Frank and Paul. And I went, guys, I can't do this anymore. I just can't keep doing this. There's not enough of me to go around. So I gave my drums to Andre, and he took over the gig, and it became one of the best drummers around in my opinion.
No doubt about that. Well, and that kind of reminds me of, because of who all played in that band. I mean, of course, you had Pat Blanks, you had Paul West, Frank Sotelo, and but it's amazing how that group morphed into being the Swift Rain.
It became Swift Rain, true.
Because you had Chick in there, and then you had Frank Sotelo also on bass. But yeah, that was a very interesting group. I'm going to be doing a show with Andre eventually, and we're going to talk about all of that. Of course, that's going to be probably a 4-hour show because of his history.
Easily. And there was an interim group before Swift Rain called Lodestar.
Yes.
And
yes.
I remember Kenny and Bill Tabor had created a studio in Tasman out in the Upper Valley and did a lot of recording out there. The one that really comes to mind is "I Love You, Gordo."
Yes.
Back in the 70, 72, somewhere in there.
In my Bill Taylor episode, you'll hear all about that. We talk exclusively about "I Love You, Gorgo." You know where that name came from, by the way? Do you know who that was?
It was a little dog I thought that Kenny's girlfriend owned.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly
I
right.
I vaguely remember the dog because I was working so much, but I vaguely remember the dog. But yeah, I was out there a few times.
Well, Jay, I got to, at this point, I want to talk a little bit about in 2010, it would have been our second year of doing Border Legends of El Paso. And we started out at the Lancers East, but the second year we went out to a place called Isaron, which was off of Country Club Road, as you recall. And that was the year that we had Randy Fuller come in, and we did a he filled the slot that night with guys that he wanted in that group. And of course, Rod on guitar and Randy on bass, and you and I did backing vocals. And I'm trying to remember. Okay, we had Paul Dillon, and we had Dwayne Quirico and Dalton playing drums that night.
Both.
And two monsters, and I know there was a lot of people there watching that show. It was a great time, very exciting for Jay and I, because we rehearsed several times out at Rod's Rosewood facility, but not in his studio, but in his rehearsal hall across the street. And we had a lot of fun doing that, right, Jay?
Absolutely. That was a lot of fun. It was nice getting to know Randy and the other guys a little bit better. I think we all went out to lunch or something the next day up at Kiki's.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was some good times. Yeah, we the Border Legends is and was a real blessing to us old musicians, because it gave us an opportunity to get back together. The first ones, Frank was still around, and he and I got together, and Andre was probably on drums, and Paul West on bass. So those were times that just were priceless.
They really were. I know you and I were having a tough time that night on that Randy set because of the wedges. They weren't turned up, and I couldn't hear myself singing at all.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know if you were having that problem, but I sure was. Between being partially deaf in my left ear and from playing too much loud music all my life, but the wedges definitely need to be cranked up more. And we didn't even have a chance to do a sound check for us. We just jumped in and did it, But that was a fun night. And then that same show, the Wild Ones played that night. So and I'm still trying to figure out who played drums. I asked Andre the other day if that was you playing with Jay that night, and he said no. Patty and I just went out and just we didn't play that show. So do you remember, Roy, who played drums?
Yes, absolutely, wasn't me. When I moved to California, I stepped off the bandstand. I mean that was I've been here back 35 years or so.
So those were times that just were priceless.
They really were. I know you and I were having a tough time that night on that Randy set because of the wedges. They weren't turned up, and I couldn't hear myself singing at all.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know if you were having that problem, but I sure was. Between being partially deaf in my left ear and from playing too much loud music all my life, but the wedges definitely need to be cranked up more. And we didn't even have a chance to do a sound check for us. We just jumped in and did it.
She danced with me.
you know. But
Yeah.
but that was a fun night. And then that same show, the Wild Ones played that night. So and I'm still trying to figure out who played drums. I asked Andre the other day if that was you playing with Jay that night, and he said no. Patty and I just went out and just we didn't play that show, you know. So do you remember, Roy, who played drums?
Yes, absolutely. It wasn't me. When I moved to California, I stepped off the bandstand. I mean, that was, I've been here back, 35 years or so. But, I haven't played since. I kept a trap set. I played myself and stuff, but I really hadn't been playing, so I had really no endurance. I still had some rhythm for a white kid, but I had no endurance. So I believe Andre truly did play that night, as I remember it.
Okay.
I think he did, because I can't think of anybody else that was playing drums for us at that time.
And who played bass that night, Roy? Do you recall?
It was Paul West.
It was Paul. Oh, okay. Because I'm going to put the video up. I'm not sure which one it is, Beethoven or which one, but it sounded pretty good. You know, it was a good mix, and so
too.
Yeah. But as I'm looking at the video, and I guess I didn't look close enough, but I guess it might have been Paul. You know. But
I'm pretty sure it's Paul. I'm pretty sure it was Paul. Paul J. Frank and Andre,
yeah,
which was, that was about as wild one as you could get for those
yeah,
guys.
Yeah.
yeah. It
It's
was.
funny. It's funny when you say Andre doesn't mention that. It takes a few of us to get a solid memory, as you know. It's amazing what time will do.
especially many years later, right?
Right. Right.
Oh man.
Hey, I didn't quit music immediately, but I want to go back to Kenny and Bobby and what Roy said,
Please.
how important they were to our music and our attitude and our respect for the music and for the blues and what have you. And I mean that was just immeasurable. I did when we came back from California, I joined up with Bill Carrick, Terry Wasnag, I think David Miller. We played around here for a little while, just did little gigs here and there, and then we moved to Oklahoma City and played around up there, Paul's Valley, Anadarko, what have you. And then when we came back here, the drummer that we had left, and so that group just kind of just there we didn't have a drummer, and it just kind of went by the wayside. I mean, no animosity or anything like that, it just didn't happen. And then years later, a guy named John Gates came up to me at the year that Kennedy was killed. They canceled the old El Paso Austin high school football rivalry. And so this was a reenactment of what should have happened that year with all the same old football players. Anyway, this guy came up to me and said, "Hey, you used to play in Wild Ones, yeah? You want to get together and jam?" So that the Foreclosures.
Oh yeah, Foreclosures. Yeah.
And we played all lawyer band. We played around a lot of different places, El Paso State Bar Association, not just in town, but out of town, the local bar association. We played for all of the host parties for every year for the Sun Bowl Association. And one super memory was playing for the Miss USA pageant when it came to El Paso. I don't know if you remember that, but there was a lot of beautiful women there.
Guy Rex production.
It probably was. But then, I play the bass at church now, and I'm trying to keep that up and trying to learn some blues licks, and so that's where I am musically.
Good for you, man. Well, it's good that you're continuing. I know you did get going with it again, and even after law school and everything. And it was the Foreclosures. Were you the only attorney in that group, or was there another one too?
Well, they were all attorneys.
All attorneys. Oh, cool.
Yeah, all attorneys.
Who all were they?
Well, one of them was John Gates. He's the one that approached me. Then Jeff Brown was on lead. Gary, I can't think of Gary's last name, was on bass, and James Dennis on John was drums. James Dennis on keyboards, and that was a lot. We lasted maybe about 6-8 years, something like that. It was a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun. A good release, a relief from the drudgery of the law.
And what a cool name for a bunch of attorneys,
Right.
That's really, really cool. Yeah.
If I may speak to Kenny and Bobby myself about something, Bobby Sotelo was a really interesting guy, relatively quiet,
Right.
but a deep thinker. I mean, the guy thought things through, thought about them, considered things. I mean, he's one of these guys that think twice before he opens his mouth, and it was really quite refreshing. Kenny, on the other hand, one of the most highly creative people I ever met in my life. I mean, Kenny was a Renaissance man. He could do anything. All he had to say is, "I want to do it," and he did it. So,
Kenny, it was so sad when we lost him. He was planning on coming to the very first Border Legends because we had the Sherwoods playing that show, and he didn't get to come in because his wife had broke her arm the day before. I think she fell off a horse or something. I don't know what happened.
Yep. Yeah, it
That's
was the
right.
horse.
Yeah. And, but, when he called and said, I'm not going to be able to make it, Rick, and I just broke my heart. And of course, it wasn't long after that we lost him, but I've got to ask you, Roy, he was doing podcasting before anybody even knew what a podcast was.
Absolutely. He used to, under the Sumi label, it was a Sumi record website.
And he had tons of really good stuff. And I've, through Bill Taylor, I had asked him to reach out to his wife to find out if she still had those cassettes or CDs or anything of those moments that he had recorded. I accidentally had come across something online, I don't remember where it was, not too long ago, several years ago, but not too long, with one of his shows. And he was just a bundle of information, really good stuff. I was just hoping that she still had access to all those cassettes or CDs or whatever, some way, because I would love to get my hands on those and reproduce those in a form of him talking about that. And I would plug those into my episodes with my podcast so the world could hear them. They were
Great asset.
Tremendous asset, But if you know of how to get any of that stuff, I would be forever grateful to you to help me find it. It'd be great to have.
I'll
Mine
check
itself
also.
was up to about 5 years ago, I think. But
Yeah.
it's out now. It was up for quite a while after Kenny's death.
I think she pulled it down, or somebody did, but I would still love to find it just for my own listening pleasure. And I'm sure some of those are just incredible, jewels. And I would love to put them out there again for the world to hear. They're just so good. But
One of
anyway.
the times I was out in Seattle at a conference, Kenny was living out there, and I managed to get a hold of him. And he had the greatest gig. He was teaching like music theory or something like that at the university out there. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So he had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday off every week. Anyway, we met up, and he took me. He and his wife had a little house out on one of the islands out there, just off of Seattle. Just
Right.
beautiful, beautiful. We went, so we had to take a ferry. You can't get there by car.
Yeah.
So went out there. We went to one of the markets out there with all this wonderful fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, fresh fish, and he and his wife cooked up a big dinner for me out there. And that was the last time I saw Kenny. But it was a wonderful opportunity to see him again.
Good for
But,
you, man. Good for you.
and then he took me after dinner. He took me out to this little tiny room. I mean, it was half the size of maybe this little bedroom I'm in right now. And they had all this kind of equipment, all over the walls, wherever he could fit it. And he played some of that Gordo stuff for me. And that may have been where he did the podcast from. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was. And, when I got off the road in 78, and then it was, I'm trying to remember, I guess it would have been around 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. Would be right before I started my blog, Musicians of El Paso. That period of time, I remember Kenny and I were talking on a regular basis, and I was talking to him about a lot of the Sumi Tasmet projects and everything, and Lou Pride and all these guys that he had recorded, Lodestar, Crosby's Kitchens, it was just all really good stuff. And, he, out of the kindness of his heart, made me a copy of everything that they ever recorded. I've got CDs of everything that they did, and including some of the original albums of The Wailing Wall. I got them. I had Sonny Farlow's album that he did. I had a copy of that. I mean, just really neat stuff that otherwise I would have never had it if it hadn't been for him giving it to me. It was just, and it showed up one day in a package. Just, I didn't even know it was coming, and he said, I just wanted to do that for you, and I never forgot that. It's such an unselfish moment in just our great friendship. It was tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Sonny Farlow, just as an aside, Bill Carrick, the one that I played with for a while, him and Terry Welsnack, Bill went and played here in town, played with Big Sonny and the Furies. Sonny Farlow
how cool.
and the Furies for a while. And then he took off to the Navy, I guess. But then, and I don't know, and Sonny left town after that, I think, and played in Austin, San Antonio.
Well, Sonny and Richard, and they had Big Sonny in the low boys, and of course we had another guy who was in broadcasting, Roy, at KDBC. His son played drums for Sonny Farlow.
Harry Slale.
Harry Slale. That was Ed Slale's son.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
I knew I had that name jotted down somewhere.
Yeah. Harry's doing real well with his show, and but yeah, he played drums with them. In fact, I've got a reel-to-reel recording of them playing at the Student Union building there at UTEP in 1969, my freshman year.
Wow.
Yeah. Fun times.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, this has been an absolute joy. I've been looking forward to doing this episode for a long time, and I'm glad we finally got her done. Any additional stories or thoughts you want to either one of you want to share before we sign off?
Not right offhand. I know Roy and I have kept up. We've rekindled our friendship over the last several years now, and it's been great just batting these ideas around for this show. So that was a really enjoyable, fun thing to do. Some of our memories aren't exactly right. I mean, parallel, but I'm sure they're pretty close to being accurate.
Yeah, mine lasted almost 6 years on the road, where yours was only 3 months on the road. So yeah, I've got a few more stories to tell, some of which I don't want to make public. But
what?
Yeah, but we'll just kind of leave it at that. How about you, Roy? You got any closing thoughts?
Well, one thing, Jay had a great career. We both had good families. I mean, Jay, to brag about him a little bit, he's got 4 great kids. He's about to have his 11th grandchild.
Wow.
11th grandchild for Jay.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of daughters by my first marriage. I've had a great second marriage. Career has just been awesome. I think up in the corner you'll see a couple of Emmys. I mean, 2 Emmys while out here in the West Coast. Learned a lot. Just had a flat, wonderful career where music led to media. And I worked radio, TV, worked for manufacturers, electronic manufacturers. Jay with another trophy there.
That's
we also won a battle of bands somewhere at Fort Bliss too at one time too.
This is the one from out at Continental Ballroom.
And I've got the photo. I've got the photo I'm going to show also of that moment. I'll put that up there. I got to say, Roy, also with my very first vocal show band in 1973 when we first went out to LA, and I'll close with this memory.
You played Vegas showrooms and stuff too.
Well, it was Lake Tahoe and stuff. But I was going to tell you our very first with my Sounds Royale show, our very first real big gig was in San Francisco at the Hyatt Regency down on California and Drum.
Yes, beautiful hotel.
And it was at the Happenstance showroom. I remember it really well. We were playing there at Christmas time. The We Five were coming in right after we were there. But it was a tremendous showroom. And I remember taking our kids on a trip. We had gone to San Francisco with the kids. They were quite young, but we did the trolley thing and all that, go up and down Mason and all that. It was really fun. But we took them to the Hyatt Regency to let them see this beautiful facility. And they completely tore out the showroom. It was a beautiful room. and they took it out, and now it's all open. I'm sure that's probably the way it still is. Just an
Still
open
is.
bar now, you know.
Right.
And for the after 5 crowd, when they shut down business, they go over there and become an open bar, you know, and beautiful place still. It was a fabulous showroom. But anyway, I had that memory, and I thought, yeah, this is cool. Being on the road is really starting to pay off, you know, and it was a fun gig. Really nice place. Yeah.
A lot of parallels, Rick. Lots of parallels.
Lots of parallels, my friends. Well,
Just a
good.
couple of tidbits before we go.
Yeah.
They probably won't make it, but the band with Terry Wasnack and Bill Carrick was called Smokestack Lightning.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But then another one, this is really has nothing to do with the music part of it, except for Ike and Tina Turner. A couple of years later, I was in California working just as a forklift operator, as a matter of fact, crazy thing. And a couple of friends of mine who were in the Navy were heading through there to their next spot or whatever. As it happens, the Ike and Tina Turner review, when Ike was still with them, and all the Ikeettes played at that same club that we were at with Carolina Pines, the ones that we backed up. And fortunately, the manager recognized me, and I said, "Hey, you remember me from blah blah blah?" He said, "Oh yeah." And he took us right in for free, marched us up to the right in front of the stage. And the stage, as Roy will recall, was only, what, 2 feet high, something like that.
Very, very low.
Yeah, so we were sitting right there, front row, you know, you could reach out and touch them if you wanted to. Well, as a matter of fact, Tina, she was singing some love song, I forget what it was, came over to one of the guys. They were in their white sailor suits, took him by the hand, sang him that song, and it was just I'm sure it was pretty amazing for him. I mean, it was for me just watching.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
but they were good. And afterwards, we tried to talk the Ikeettes into going and partying with us, but they said no, can't do it.
See, there's a similar story right there, Roy, you know, the parallels, because when we played in Lake Tahoe, which was the very first gig that my Tapestry band, not the one I was talking about a moment ago at the High Regis, that was a Sounds Royale show, but my Tapestry band playing at the Lake Tahoe Sahara, we got to know the Jackson 5 very well. And we did go party with them, and it was a tremendous time, you know, and just so much fun, you know, thinking about how it was back in those days, and yeah, good stuff, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now those things I do remember, you know. Some things I just forget. Guys, this has been an absolute joy. Thank you for sharing your afternoon with me, and we'll
enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you. We'll stay in touch and talk to you guys real soon, okay?
We hope so.
Good. Sounds good. All right.
All right. You guys
Y'all
take care.
All right. God bless.
Thanks, Rick.
God bless you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.